Well, hey, so today I thought I'd continue my experimenting with how to use ChatGPT for solo role playing. Now, if you missed the first part, I basically went over like setting up a prompt, kind of the setup that I use, all that sort of stuff, and then I did a little analysis as well. Kind of, I don't know, it was like 6 minutes or so, kind of explaining the prompt. So for people who don't want to sit through a live stream, so what I'm going to do today is make sure that the audio is working. Who really knows? I'm going to assume it is. I still don't really, after doing this so many years, I'm still not great at monitoring if stuff is working. I'll just load it up this way. We'll see what's going to happen. So, as you may recall, I have been using that basic adventure from the starter set behind my head. The what is it? The Lost Island of Cragnamore. No, that's not right. The Lost Mines of Phandelver, or however you say it. And I'm using that. The audio is good. I'm using that for multiple reasons. One, it's one that I think a lot of people know. But then also, in at least the starter set version, it has pretty good instructions to a DM of what to do. And so the premise here, of course, is that I want to use ChatGPT as a dungeon master for my solo role playing. And I've been doing this for a while now, since the fall, like August 2023 is when that was, for whenever you're watching this. And, I've learned a little bit here and there, but I want to kind of systematize it more. So I think having instructions, that adventure is instructional for dungeon masters. So it has a lot of kind of tips about how to do things, which hopefully ChatGPT will pick up on. So I played all the way through, I set things all the way through to right up to the Goblin ambush, if you know that. You can go look it up. It doesn't really matter. But there's some goblins ambushing a character that I'm playing, which is kind of a overqualified character for this level. But I didn't want to have to worry about, combat and all of that stuff. And it'll resolve quickly with his ability to deal damage. But he's a 7th, 8th level fighter. I forget. And, there's a map in kind of the reprinting of this. But the situation is, I think this is the official map, which is nice. You've got your horses milling about here. I think there was a better one that I liked a little bit more, that someone had made in, I don't know. That's kind of nice. But here we go. This one's not so bad. How do you maximize the pictures? I always forget. Oh, I don't want to go to look at whatever that is. But, you get the idea. Classic sort of goblin thing that you've got going on there with a road. I think if I was doing it, I would want like the kind of rocky cliff fates that you have up there, kind of a twisty road here. But that's pretty much your setup, right? Here's the official one. I think if you want to get actually, I don't think that is official. Who cares? All right, so let me open up the little character that I have. And I use Beyond D&D or D&D and Beyond. It's fine. As I said earlier, it doesn't have a plain text export, which is annoying. So the way that I set this up, if you're interested, is speaking of this, like the thing that I went over before is what you can do is you can open up a module wherever it might be, whether they must be pirated. You're going to the 5e tools one and finding your adventures there or whatever. Like what you really want to do, I'll do the legal thing. You can go here and you can find your Lost Mines. They don't make it really easy to just go find the easy stuff. Where is it? Appendix this, appendix that. So what I did last time, just to sum it up, is I went in here. I won't go over the prompt. You can look at the previous video to see what the prompt was. And, you can select the adventure you have. Now, you can upload files to ChatGPT, which I'll mess with later. But I found that pasting is kind of the surest bet to do things. So what I did last time, here's a little thing. To get the text, you can use the reader mode in Safari. I'm sure Chrome has something. And there you go. You can just copy out exactly what you want and then paste it in there, which is what I did. So we got to the point where the goblins had ambushed Leifdag, or Loveday, to say his modern day English way of saying it. And they had surprised him, and they shot a couple of arrows. One of them hit, and then the other two, you can see a summary here. I'll zoom in. The other two goblins were charging at him with their scimitars or short swords or whatever, which is, I think, what you're supposed to do in that adventure. Let's leave the adventure open over here so that we can see following along here. And so let me zoom in more for you. And this is one thing that's actually great between sessions is you can ask it, when you come back to a session, you can ask it like, what were we up to? What was the current state of things? And you can see it's got a pretty good summary, actually. And I had asked it earlier last session to kind of describe the spatial setup. And I even had asked it to make a map, which it failed at. And I tried that later on, so I'm not really sure why it's failing at making a map. That's an experiment for another time. But again, you can kind of imagine the setting. I'm not going to get too hung up on the mapping here, although normally when I'm solo role-playing, I mean, the map is a big deal because, you need something to enforce not like cheating, I guess, which is easy to do if you don't have a map. And it's actually nice. Like if there's certain, especially ranged feats that you get, but also things that, like if you have Polearm Master or some of the, what do they call them? Battle Master techniques, where you can push people a certain, like 15, if you have the push attack, you can push people. And if you have the Shield Master thing or the telekinesis. So actually knowing the grid and the dimensions for stuff is pretty good, but we'll skip over that. So what's happening here? Here's what I'm going to do is I want to test out how good ChatGPT can be at actually administering all of the bookkeeping and the numbers and the things like that. So normally when I'm playing, what I would do is I would load up in D&D Beyond the encounter builder they have, which you load monsters into it. It tracks initiative. It lets you roll things. It's great for doing all of that. And I found over the months that it's kind of best to do all of that on your own instead of having the DM, the ChatGPT do it. But we'll have it go for it. So far, it rolled surprise and did things. So I'm going to ask it now. So what is the initiative order? And like I said, you don't actually have to spell things correctly because it's very good at that. So we'll see. Determine earlier in combat. It's a little verbose. This is a prompt thing I'm going to write down here is like instruct it to have shorter, let's say, responses to mechanics. Mechanics, like asking initiative order. Asking initiative order. In fact, let's try to tune that right now. Now I use curly braces to give it kind of notes, what I call chat, DM notes. In the future, for questions like this, keep the answer terse. Keep using long answers for the narrative and description stuff. Okay, so the goblins rolled 17. The groups, okay. Leifdag runs the initiative order. All right. Well, it must be the goblins' turn. So play that out and tell me what happens. And then I will tell you what Leifdag does. So we'll see. Oh, it says he has a chance to react. Well, whatever. I didn't read this part. Oh, right. No, it is saying that because, when you have a surprise round, they get to do whatever. So this is pretty good. They spring into action. So they were 30 feet away. So it's keeping track of things. So these two, now what I noted last time is, error analyzing. Let's, we might have to have it generate this again, but I'll give you some commentary. So I don't know if the DM, I don't think the module tells the DM that they should be using the what is it called? Nimble Escape. What is that goblin's ability called? It's called, where is their special ability? Nimble Escape, right. So what a goblin should be doing, an archer goblin especially, is they should attack you And then because they have this nimble escape thing, they can use a bonus action to try to hide again or to run away at twice their speed. Now, I know everyone's all like, it's not twice their speed. You're adding extra movement or some bullshit like that. But effectively, it's twice their speed. Nice rule picking there. But like, essentially, what they should do is the goblin should hide and shoot their arrow. And when you attack from a hidden state, you get to roll, you get what's called advantage. You get to roll the 20-sided dice twice and take the higher one. So you've got a better chance of succeeding. And then when they attack, they should use this bonus action again to attempt to hide again, so they get that again. Now, this would be something that would be great for ChatGPT to automate, is when you do hide, you have to roll a stealth check, which means you roll a dice and you get a number, and then I, the player, would get a number to try to perceive them. And if my number is higher, then I can see them and they can't have hidden. And that can be kind of a slow down thing for play, but I highly doubt it's going to figure that out. It hasn't even figured out to hide. So let's see what they did. So here you can see I told it to go ahead and do. And so these archers should attack, and they definitely hit him, just barely. And so these ones, they attempt to initiate close combat at their next opportunity. So they, let's see. So the other one, so one of them hit, and then what's the damage is, let's see if that's correct. 1d6 plus 2 piercing damage. I think that is because the goblins have a short bow, right? So let's click on that and see. This is a good test. Yep. So that's, well, no, that's their, so yeah, they do that. They have that. And it's also interesting that it's deciding, instead of taking the static measure, it's, I guess, rolling. We'll take a look at what it's doing to find out. So maybe it's doing that, but he does 5 points of damage. So let's look at how it rolled that. So it made a little script. This is the attack roll. It didn't, so it's only doing attacking. So look at that. It did decide to take the static amount of damage. So that's an interesting decision. Instead of rolling the damage that the goblins did, it took that, I don't know what you call that, the set amount. So he takes 5 points of damage. So let's be a responsible player and say he takes 5 points of damage. And then the melee, the goblins, they close in positioning themselves. He's just been struck by stallions with 71. Oh, it's been keeping track of his hit points. Impressive. So the charge consumes their actions this turn. That's not true. If they're 20 feet away, right? So a goblin can move 30 feet and still attack. So let's see what the analysis is here. Okay, so it did calculate it maybe. Okay, so let me do some correction here. Now, other than enjoying the play, the reason I'm doing correction here is one of my theories that I'll try to test out is that if I take this log and I give it back to ChatGPT, the ChatDM, it hopefully will pick up on training with this, right? It'll say like, here is a successful style of play. I can do predictive whatever magic to match with that. And hopefully by building this up, and then it'll see that training and kind of relive it. And then I'm also thinking once I add that to a custom built GPT, I can just upload all these files and magic will happen, but we'll see. So let me give it some notes here. Let's see, here's a few, I'll tell it that I want to replay this over. Let's replay this round with a few, is it tutorial? With a few, I don't know, teaching notes for you. This is one nice thing about ChatGPT is you don't have to be as like precise or nice or even like coherent in your communication as you would in human language, right? So like if I told someone I was going to give them some teaching notes, they might be insulted by it and things like that. But so let's replay this round. And then one, just like I was saying, when a goblin attacks with a bow, it should attack from having hidden, as these did, meaning that it gets advantage on attack. Let's see, rolls d20 twice and uses the highest. Of course, you have to, when it attacks from hidden in surprise, let's see. And then after a ranged goblin attacks, it should use its bonus action from... am I right about that? It can hide, disengage. Yeah. Okay, so it can't dash, but it can disengage. So, I mean, it could disengage, which means you can't be attacked within whatever reach your opponent has, usually 5 feet. But if you disengage, you can't be attacked. You defend yourself. So it should use its bonus action, and I'll say nimble escape to try to hide again. This might include it moving somewhere to find cover. In this case, the player would need, let's see, I'll see if it's smart enough to do this. You need to do a standard stealth check. I think you call it a contest. Contest between the players and the goblins. 2. The melee goblins were within 20 feet. Their movement is 30, so they can actually engage. I'm going to call it for the purpose of future usage. I'm just going to say generic things like the player, so that if it does retrain itself, it doesn't get stuck up on only this character, but just a generic. It can engage the player in melee combat. Also, these 2 goblins should try to flank the player, and that means be on opposite sides of each other so that they get advantage. The first won't. Although actually, I guess you could get overly tricky and you could say there's something in D&D called a ready action, which means you instead of taking your turn in combat, you do a trigger, and then once that trigger goes, it then makes you take your action. So one way of thinking about this is, so you got these 2 goblins and one person in the middle, and one of them could rush to one side and attack, and then the other one will rush to the other side, and then they're flanking because you get this bonus if you're on the opposite side of someone. And so the second one, when you flank, you get advantage. You can roll a d20 twice. Then that second one would get advantage. But maybe what they should do is the first goblin should run up to one side of the player and make a ready action to attack after the second one has attacked. And then that means that this first one actually will get advantage. That's some strategy. That would be fun to see. We'll see what it does. But anyways, so the 2 goblins should try to flank the player, be on opposite sides of each other so that they get advantage on their attacks. Now, I haven't told ChatGPT that Leifdag has the Sentinel feat, which would complicate things a great deal for them. But now I'm just going to switch over that. If you know what the Sentinel feat would do here, you should leave a comment below. Pop quiz for you. He also has the Pole Master feat, which means an even more complicated thing if you combine together Pole Master and Sentinel, but we'll just skip over that. We'll keep it pretty simple. So with those teaching moments, replay this round. We'll see what happens. Oh, that would be a bummer. So here is, could not part, oh, okay. Hold on. Let me, first of all, I'm going to copy that so I don't lose that. And then I'll go back to my big head. And then I will re-log in to the old ChatGPT thing here. But why does it want, it's telling me that I don't need to re-log in. So let's see what happens. All right, let's go back over here. Maybe it was just being a little... How do they do it in the Fantastic Mr. Fox? Let's see if we can find that. Fantastic Mr. Fox, a little nutty. I'll have to find a GIF of that later. You know, see what it is. A GIF. Oh, maybe here. Yeah, there's Ash. You know why he can get in there? Because he's little. All right, we'll go back and see what it's done. Oh, so here we go. The re-rolled attack with advantage because they were attacking. Oh, well, So it's not quite great but that's okay. It's in the spirit. So, and then after attacking, the archer goblins attempt to hide, rolling stealth checks of 18 and 17. Now it should ask me to roll that. We'll see. And then utilizing their movement to flank Leifdag, or however you say that, and engage him in melee combat. The melee goblins attack. See, it didn't figure out the a rules lawyer would be like, but the first one technically doesn't get advantage. But then you could have that workaround. So we'll assume it was smart enough to do that. Let's calculate the damage. Let's see what's going on here. So this should include rolls with advantage. So I don't really understand Python. Oh, it gets the max. So it gets the highest one. And then the stealth rolls. So that's fun. Oh, you don't really need to see all that. The melee ones. So here's something curious that it's doing is it's rolling. Is it rolling two separate things? The 2 arrows hit him, resulting in 4 and 3 points of piercing damage. Okay, so that's 2 more than he already got. So I'm going to be a good boy and account for that damage. Let me zoom in here some. And then he takes 10 points of damage. And so far he's had 7. So we got to add 3 because what did they do? The successful flanking attack. So only one of them. So only one goblin went. And then on the roll of 7, both goblins hide their attacks. All right, let's give it some more instruction. That was good. You missed. Messed up 2 things that I want you to account for. 1, so utilizing their movement, engaging in the melee, their attack rolls are 22 and 9. Okay, so actually that was fine because one of them missed. Okay, so that's fine. And then, so you messed up one thing, and that is in this stealth check, the player does not use passive perception. I roll the check. And I guess you roll it for each of the goblins. I'm not really sure what you're supposed to do. So I'm going to do that for each of the archers trying to hide. So I'm going to go over, well, why don't we just, it actually uses analytics now, so it can do that. It uses Python. So in theory, it can do the rolls. Let's see, what's his perception? It's +3. So this player has a +3 for perception. So do those rolls and determine if the archers successfully hit. And then I will tell you what Leifdag does. Here, since it is specific to him, I'm going to put it here. Leifdag does. You do the accounting for things, and then let's move to the next round. So far, this is going pretty great. So with the 2 goblins flanking me, I use my 2 attacks. Let's see. I'm going to say what I'm going to do and then do it. I'm going to use my 2 attacks and mobile feat to pull back from them. First, I attack. I don't know why I'm reading this to you. Is that fun? First, I attack the goblin on the right. I roll a, let's see what he rolls. Here. I know you're not supposed to, whatever, but he would walk around with his glaive since he's got a pole master thing, not that dopey sword. Where is his? There you go. All right. He's also not walking around with a longbow. So I'll be a super good boy and move that over there. All right. So he's going to attack. You know, he could do some fancy stuff and push them back, but let's keep it simple. Oh, so he got a 20. So I roll a 20. And these goblins have an AC of, I'll make it calculate this. Now here's something that I think is good to do, just because you have limits and things like that, is kind of batching up possible things, right? So I know that hit, but I want to test if the ChatDM like can figure that out, knows the goblin's armor class and blah, blah, blah. So I'll say if that hit the goblin, Leaf Dag deals, he's going to eliminate or kill that guy with the amount of damage he gives, unless he gets really unlucky. So 2, so 7. Well, actually, you could call that unlucky because, well, lucky enough. Deals 7 points of damage. If that does not kill the goblin, Leaf Dag uses his next attack to attack it again. Let's see if we can sort this out. But if that did kill the goblin, okay. Oh, let's get complicated. Attack it again instead of the other goblin. His next attack roll is a 14. And how much damage does he do? High rolling today is a 22. If that hits, he does, how much was it? 6 points of damage. He does 6 points of damage. After the attacks, he uses his mobile feat to move back 40 feet and avoid any opportunity attacks from the 2 melee goblins. Run all of this for me, and then re-describe the battlefield with positions of the goblins, including distance, and then start the next round. Now that's a lot. If that works, that'll be pretty amazing. Also, as we're watching this, like one of the great advantages of it working like this is you would be able to play on your phone. Like if it does all the bookkeeping, or you play it without having to do all this bookkeeping and stuff, right? Now I think that's where actually some programming would be very handy, if you had some scripts that was like, modify your character and track it. But, it's doing all right with this. But you can see how you could do some light stuff like this while you're out and about, waiting for your prescription refill, waiting to go through the passport line at Schiphol if you don't have a European, an EU, Switzerland, or whatever the other ones are, sort of entry, so you can get a little faster. So let's see. So is that what I told it the perception checks were? No, because I wanted it to roll for me. And it rolled a 14 and 19, so that's great. He sees one of them hides and the other one doesn't. This means he spots one of the goblins attempting to hide, but the other is hidden in combat. So he targets the goblin to his right. No, see, it sort of did miss this up. But, well, I guess, with price in 2 swift, precise attacks. If you're the strict interpreter, that means he expended his 2 attacks. But whatever. The first attack rolls. Well, I should have. So okay, there's something to note. You have to tell it when you roll a natural 20 versus that being the total attack roll. So this is a very interesting moment here. So in D&D, when you roll a 20-sided dice, that's what they call a natural 20. And when you do that, you double the damage that you roll. Then you add some more damage that you don't double, whatever. But you basically double your damage, basically. If you roll a 1, that means you fumble and you mess up your attack. And depending on how you play it, you might like screw up even further. What I do, my house rule in solo DMing is that if you fumble your attack, you definitely don't hit, and if you have any other attacks you have that round, you lose out on all of them, which is really a bummer if you're playing like a Gloomstalker Ranger, which will basically have like 3 attacks, including 1 that deals an extra D8 of damage, and to screw up all of that is a bummer. Whatever. But here, I actually didn't roll a natural 20. I rolled something that added up to 20, so I need to make sure to tell it that it's not a natural 20. So, because here, let's see if given the standard health of a goblin, this attack would be enough to... However, following instructions will proceed. The first attack... Yeah. Which rolls a 22. Yeah, well, now, that actually is kind of interesting, because a goblin could have 12 hit points of damage. And so this is an area, one of the things with ChatGPT is its ability to hallucinate, that is, make things up, is actually great for creative stuff. And so in this area, my mentality is usually like, it says it has 7 hit points, so that's what it has. But adding the variation of like, well, maybe it has more is actually great. Like something interesting and new has happened. So that's fun. So he actually did have to use his 2 attacks, and it really blew a lot of damage on him. Now, I think, I told it the damage that it rolled, right? So he really got rid of that little fella there. So after successfully the leaf so he goes down 40 feet. We could imagine. Let's come up with a map. Make it a little more fun here. Oh, well, that's stupid. Where is the goblin? Where's the good one? So that's from Wonder Draft, which is pretty good, but it's not big enough. Let's see. Goblin Arrows. So that one's pretty nice. Let's open up this one. And then how, if we actually open and, no, not the link. Things are going crazy. Oh, well, here we go. That'll work. Okay, so you can't really see 40 feet because this is around, so he was inspecting the horses. So this is where that would have happened. And assuming this is a 5x5, I mean, 40 feet is like, 5, how do you do it? 15, 20, then if you add, I forget, 30. So actually, okay, he would have retreated to like back here or so with his 40 feet, and the 2 goblins would be there. And then it was saying that the archers were 30 feet away. So that's like, these are each 5. So that's like 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So the 2 archers are approximately here, right? So that means this is actually kind of works out for him, because if he goes back here, if he manages to have enough movement, normally I'd have this loaded up into the map thing. Maybe I should do that to kind of see movement. Why don't we do that? I mean, what else are we doing here? Did that actually save? Come on. Open image, new tab. Oh, it's doing this dumbass stuff, if I can call it that. So save image as. Okay, so it did save it. Let me make sure that actually worked. Okay, so is, like I was saying, I like to do maps in solo role-playing. I'm going to save this so that I can maybe refer back to it later. We'll get rid of this. So here you have, there's a map that I used a long time ago. Let's do this really quick. I was thinking I need to get some music for these. So we'll call this ChatDM Goblin Arrows. And then we'll load this map up here. One day I should probably try using D20 or something, but I paid for this now. And like, you know, this is a is you can end up spending a lot of money on D&D stuff. The switch over from buying the perpetual license of printed material to a subscription of digital material works really well for driving some cash here. So let's see, where's our ChatDM thing? So we'll add that there. All right, let's load this one up and we'll zoom in a little bit. So instead of me messing around with this, let me adjust this as big as it'll go. We'll zoom in a little bit more. All right, so let's add in Goblin. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a player. I need to get a little picture thing for him. So to replay it, remember he was inspecting the horses. Let's say he was here, and these goblins rushed out, and you know, let's say one of them's here. Actually, if you were being a sickle, you'd be like, oh, a dead horse is difficult terrain, blah blah blah. But let's say this one ran out from here, and they were effectively flanking him, right? Now, if we go back, it said that, remember we had the spatial thing. So the two archers positioned 30 feet away in the thickets. So let's position them. So this is pretty good for the ChatDM that it's giving me the spatial stuff, because it's effectively like running the position of stuff. So I don't have, usually I would have to think where to put these guys or gals, these goblins. So let's say, 30 feet. So we'll put this one here. Oh, it's thickety. And of course they would be on either side, right? So I'll put that one over here. Okay. So then they did their attacking, and then Leifdag used his 40 feet of movement to go here, right? Now, I want to do all this because that becomes interesting. So would he go there? I think, you know, when I'm playing, I try not to think too much. One, because it's relaxing. I'm always thinking too much thoughts going on all the time. But also you want to have, like, you know, the errors introduced by like not being overly analytical about things. So, you know, thinking too much would be like, which side should he go on? But I think my intuition was pretty good that he should, I mean, I guess he should actually not get that extra thing, but he should go here, right? Now, why is that interesting? Well, first of all, he's moved 40 feet from these goblins who now cannot reach him. Well, maybe this one can. So that one can reach him, but it also, like, if you, this is where it can be fun, is like, this is difficult terrain to move through, which halves your movement or adds an extra foot or whatever, however that's calculated. And so arguably this goblin would not be able to reach him to do a melee attack, right? Because he can't really, it depends what these actually are. It would kind of screw him up. Now this one, he has more or less a direct shot, but because Leifdag can move 40 feet instead of 30, this one can't reach him either. So that's kind of interesting. We'll see if ChatGPT picks up on that. And then also, well, we don't really know where these guys moved, but they probably don't have a clear shot, although it looks like these are trees, right? Which has tree trunks, which if you're thinking about it, so I've never fired an arrow, but I imagine you've got like tree trunks out there, and then you've also got Leifdag there. So maybe he gets like a third cover, right? Which I think is a +2 to your armor class. Whereas this guy, he's definitely still within the range of a short bow. He probably has a better shot. It depends how tall those thickets are. So those are interesting things to take in consideration that I bet ChatGPT will do nothing with. But let's find out. So, he did this. He did some damage. So he did kill one of them. And which one? I forget which one I said he was going to attack. The one on the right. First, I attacked the one on the right. Okay, so let's eliminate the one on the right. This poor fella or fellerette. They are gone. That goblin. So then that happened. All right, so one is hidden, and the other is spotted but has attempted to hide. Their position remains 30 feet away from Liftstag's original position. Oh, so see, look at that. It knows how to do math. One is incapacitated. The other, initially flanking him, is now about 40 feet away, having been unable to make an opportunity. Yep, the remaining goblins must reassess their strategy. Yep, and the archers, particularly the one that must decide. Okay, so I'm curious how it calculated all of this. So it did its perception checks, compared it and set that up. It didn't even have to do some Python to calculate the distance. So let's see what happens. Let me do a little check-in here. See if there's any comments I should reply to from the one person watching it, which is probably me, but that's fine. Load this up. So here, let's just do maximum nerdery and give it some more teaching moments. Okay. More teaching moments. More teaching moments. ChatDM tips. In this next round, since Liftstag has moved back 40 feet along a road with forest and thickets on each side, consider if the archer still has line of sight to Liftstag. And if it does, if all of the trees give Liftstag some kind of cover per D&D rules. If the archers cannot see him, perhaps they move so that they can, which would require them to do another stealth check, but they can use their bonus action to try to. Second, what will the melee goblin do now that it can't reach Liftstag? Falling short 10 feet. All right. Run, let's say. Start the next round. So let's see what happens. This should be fun. Wonder if I can zoom in on this some more. Of course I can. So I'm going to stop the scrolling so I can read it. Let's assume one archer moves to get a closer look. Well, how about the other one? Well, whatever. It's the ChatDM. Can do what it wants. It's 40 feet. Cannot close the distance. Ending up 10 feet, possibly seeking cover or preparing to charge the next turn. Now, we'll see what it actually does. But in this case, since Liftstag has a pole arm, he can actually reach 10 feet, so he can engage with this goblin. So again, if you were being like a crafty DM, you would be like, does this goblin know that with a pole arm, with a glaive, he could be reached at 10 feet? And so wouldn't he stop before getting that close? Sure, you could do that. But then he would also know that Liftstag could also move 40 feet and doing whatever he wanted to. Like, I think what I would have done with that goblin is I would have had him like fall back and go into the thicket and try to hide, and then attack with arrows instead of doing this. But also, it's kind of written the adventure that you should have these two things. And you know, the goblins don't know how powerful he is or not, so their assumption might be that they might be well trained enough and disciplined that this is a common tactic that they use, which is exactly what the adventure tells you to do. But you know, I like to assume the monsters are smart enough to figure things out, and if I think there might be some doubt, I'll roll like a wisdom check to see if they do the smarter decision or not. All right, so the archer does that. So they give him partial cover. Well, that's fun. So look, it's figured that out. It knows what partial cover is. It did that well. Archer goblin attack for stealth following the attack. And then it tries to hide again. So look, it's picked up on that it should attack and then hide. So that's good. Is aimed at finding a clear line of sight. Let's simulate the archer's attack. So then it's one of them that was already could see it. So that's good. So it made the assumption, I think, you know, I made this assumption too, properly so, that this is the one that still had line of sight. So it did this. Now, who knows if that's the one that was hiding or not? Doesn't really matter. So that one did attack. And then this is the one that has to move. So we'll see. So it moves to find a line of sight and then does that. It maneuvers to get a clear shot, and then it rolls a 22. This is an excellent roll. These rolls so far are a little high, but whatever. It looks like it's using code for it. This might be enough to hit Leifdag, depending on where we apply the cover bonus. So it would be enough if he gets partial cover. He uses nimble escape feature to hide now. The problem here, after attacking. Okay, good. So it did the right order. It rolls a 22. So it should blend back in. Now we'll see if it gives me a chance to roll that. Probably not. Just 10 feet away, positioning itself. All right. So it didn't actually tell me if any of this stuff hit. Okay. One has just attacked and hidden again. Okay. Did any of these attacks hit Leifdag? His AC is 18. Let's see if it remembers to add the +2. Well, it's hard to tell. We'll look at the analyzing that it did. So I think it forgot about this other goblin, right? So this one, the remaining goblin. So that one just ran up to him. It's total waste, but whatever. Archer goblin makes its attack roll. And then it moves the other one. So I think it's lost track that there's 2 goblins. Yeah. Now let's calculate the damage. So one of them, I've kind of lost track of stuff, but that's fine. Let's say one of them did 4 points of damage. Good. So I'm going to give it a little quiz here. Okay, so let's say, I think you forgot the second archer goblin. All right. Can you play that one's turn out? So see, it lost track there, right? Which is fine. A human might lose track in the heat of this thrilling goblin ambush battle. So let's see. So it didn't account for partial cover, but that's okay. Rolling a 21, the highest the gun 2 conceals its position. So one thing I'm going to note is in the prompt, tell it to run challenges like stealth checks for the character. Yeah. Anyway, so let's see. Also, I don't know if it's using advantage. Let's calculate the damage. It rolled that. Let's see if it actually did random init. So it's also lost track Archer's Goblin considering similar conditions. So it's also lost track that the Goblin should have advantage, so we'll have to remind it of that. He's been hit twice by the Goblin Archers. Both managed 10 feet away. Okay, so ChatDM teaching moment. You forgot that the Goblins, let's say, I think you forgot that the Goblins attack with advantage. Don't re-roll these. Let's see. Don't re-roll these attacks here, but remember that when a player, NPC, or monster attacks from hiding, it gets to roll with advantage, rolling d20 twice and taking the highest roll, let's say using. All right. Okay, so Leafdag uses his glaive to attack the Malay Goblin, which is 10 feet away and thus within reach of his glaive. Let's see. So first, after these attacks, let's see if it has kept track of this. Tell me how many hit points I have left. And then we'll switch between I and me and the first person and third person, see if it can handle that. He rolls so let's go up here and say he rolls. This is kind of fun, huh? I've been rolling combat all on my own for now. Oh, wait. So he rolled a 23, which is definitely going to hit. And we'll say, if that hits, he rolled... we'll roll the damage. He rolled an 11 for damage. It'd be fun to say if and only if that hits. I wonder... I'm going to throw that in there to see if that's old logic programming things, IFF, to see what that does. Now let's also, just for our own entertainment, so they said this goblin, again, we're not accounting for difficult terrain, but they said that it ran and was in 10 feet. Yeah, see, that's kind of good because it kind of does account for that. But let's say within 10 feet. So it would be, that would be... here. I don't know. I would get a little confused about if reach goes outside of your square or it includes your square, but I think that would approximately be it. Okay. And then I don't actually know where these guys went to. I'm going to say that in order to get line of sight, this one moved to like here and then kind of went back here to hide. Which is okay. And then if the goblin is not incapacitated, let's just throw in killed and see if it freaks out. Killed yet. Leafdag attacks again, rolling let's see what he rolls. I'm just going to play this through maybe to completion. Yeah, because I want to see what happens with those archers. He rolls an 11. An 11 to attack, which, let's check. I think that may not actually attack. Yeah, so that should miss. So here's a good test. If that hits, he rolled so the second attack should miss. A 10. A 10. For damage. Tell me what happens. So again, he should miss his second attack. And again, depending on the delightful way, since the goblin has 2d6 hit points, if it's maxed out at 12, or, the chat DM just decides it has more hit points, which is totally fine. That's a little trick for DMing that you can always do, is you can just change the hit points or even the abilities of a standard goblin. But we'll see. So 64. First, that would be pretty awesome. I mean, one, it depends on me. Yeah, so I'm actually the one who might have messed up on this, calculating it so close. But that's pretty great that it's figured that out. I think if I had a plain text character sheet, I could probably also do a lot more. That would be, let me write that down as a thing to do. So test combat with plain text character sheet to see if it knows everything. To see if it knows all the player stuff. Because I told it in the previous session, I told it the armor class and hit points. So it knows what he has. His attack is decisively effective. Well, there you go. Look how polite it's being. It's sufficient to defeat it. Oh, I'm going to add in the prompt. Now, one of the fun things you can do as a player is, when you're a player, is you can describe how you kill something. Create a description of combat, especially when a monster is defeated. All right. So, considering their standard health pool, the second attack is unnecessary. It's incapacitated. So that's too bad. We didn't get to test out if it missed it. With the immediate threat, he stands on his road and the two archer goblins hidden there. So he's dealt with the closest threat. So let's see what it did. So 74 minus 4 minus 3, current H, subtracting the damage. So that's probably accurate. So it used the standard. So let's add another thing to the prompt, is prompt use variable hit points by rolling monster hit points. I like that. See, that's fun. Instead of, what did it call it? Instead of standard health pool. Instead of standard hit points. Okay. So what is he going to do? So let's go. So he's dealt with that one. So he can move 40 feet, but also as a fighter, he has what's called not a second wind. Is it a second wind? He gets no, second wind is restoring hit points, but he can actually, well, maybe it is. Yes, it is. No. Where's the thing where he can use an extra? He can do an action surge. So he can actually do something extra. Now let's see. So here I'm going to waste one of the things. Are both of the archers hidden? So if one of them is not hidden, then I think what he'll do. No, see, it's using this passive percent. In this case, you don't use passive perception for, let's say, according to the D&D. So I always like to be like overly pedantic and specific here. Again, since it's a robot, and also for the purposes of retraining it. See, instead, the players should roll a perception check. I will do that now. One for each goblin. He rolls, let's see. Leaf Dag rolls. So we'll go over here to his perception. I forget if it did it, but, you know, I'll just do it. He rolls a 10 and a 4 and a 7. Pretty terrible. He rolls a 10 for one goblin and a 7 for the other. Does this result in both of the goblins being hidden based on their rolls for stealth? for stealth and hiding. So I would be going back and forth like this on all sorts of things if there wasn't like a cap, a limit to what you can use, which when I get around to comparing it to other AI models, including running one on your own, we at Tanzu, you can set up your own on-premises or self-managed, as we like to call it, LLM thing using Hugging Face or whatever in our Tanzu application service. You should check that out. Search for Tanzu application service and AI LLM. You'll find a good blog post and demo going over it. But that's one of the things I would do if I was running my own or I had unlimited prompts that I want to experiment with, is I would be going back and forth all the time. But I've learned in ChatGPT and probably in the other public ones, you know, they govern you. So you could blow through like all of your prompt questions within seconds, maybe not seconds, minutes, and you'd have to wait like 3 hours. So that's one of the reasons I'm really interested in running my own ones, especially with our Tanzu application service, formerly Pivotal Cloud Foundry, and using the hosted LLM on my own so I don't have these limits. Also, I think I would be able to load up and train it on a lot more material. But until I get around to that, we're doing this. So earliest stealth was a 22, so both of them are hitting. So, right. So he can't really find where they are. I don't, so what do you do when you have two attackers? Maybe what he should do is they could kind of wait it out. So this is the other thing about solo role playing that's kind of a bummer, or just knowing anything, is like after a while you know the stats of all the creatures, which is good. Why it's good for them to have variable ones. So I think maybe what he'll do. Let's try like a little siege here. This will be some like creative role playing. Let me see if he has any kind of interesting abilities he could use. Because what I'm thinking he should do is basically hide out, and they'll play like a game of chicken to see who's going to come in first, right? Now, he's terrible at hiding. He wears full plate. I mean, a +4 would be good, but he has to roll it at disadvantage. Let me make sure he's got that. He can't really, you can't, when you make a, you can expend. Huh. Oh, right. That would this only adds to charisma checks. All right. Okay. So what he's gonna do, we're gonna say he goes behind the cart, and he's gonna hide. So, not able to sight the two archers. Leafdag decides to play a game of chicken. He also has a longbow, but like switching between those two, if you have, do you get a free action? So he would have to like drop his glaive and pick up his longbow and then just sort of like haphazardly fire into the forest. Now you can do that, but I don't really like the rules of like attacking people that are hidden, because like if they've got a movement of 30, how do you even know where to point or whatever? Let's see. Chicken. He stealthily moves behind the cart. He is standing. He is standing next to. He also lays down his glaive and switches to using his longbow. I think you could do that. You could just like drop something. I'm just going to go with it because it gets a little confusing. I should look that up later. He readies an attack with his longbow that if he can see one of the goblins, he will shoot his longbow at it. Stealthily to move behind the cart. Let's say to move and hide. And again, I'm going to be overly specific from the Goblin Archers. So for his stealth check, He rolls a... Now, he gets disadvantage, so I have to roll twice and take the lowest one. So that's great. He gets he rolled a 9 and a 23. So he rolls a total of 13. Is there anything else? Because he's he's readied his action. Can you ready an action that goes into the next round? I don't know, but we'll say okay. Now it's the two archers do turn. Does a readied action expire after a round? I'm not going to look that up. If I was a DM, I would say, well, no. Then someone who does the last thing can never ready an action, which is stupid. Of course they can. What do they do? How? So this is a little bit of like, there must be a word for this with this where I'm kind of, I'm giving it some leading prompting. I could say, what do they do? Or I can kind of say, how do they adapt their strategy? Which I've kind of noticed with the ChatGPT, it doesn't always choose to ignore that leading, right? Like instead what it's going to say is like, oh, they're going to adapt their strategy and it'll do something different instead of being like, nope, they do the same thing. So we'll see. Tell me what they do in their turns, and then I'll tell you what Leifdag does in response. Let's say, does that work? Just kind of leading it along. So let's see what happens. I need some music for my own sanity. I think I could pump in. I was thinking, I like the funk and acid jazzy kind of thing. I think I can go to the YouTube's free stuff and just select on that playlist and set up OBS to pump it in here. Why not? It's taking a while to analyze. While we're doing that, I'll check in. Uh-oh. It's got the great error correction nowadays where it actually tries it again, which is super nice. Otherwise, you have to be the person who's like, try that again, which surprisingly is effective. Oh, here we go. All right, you can read that while I check in here. Yep. So let's see. He conceals himself behind the cart. Let me put in another note. I'll put a link to that Tanzu application service AI thing. You should really check it out because I think that's going to be very helpful for getting over these limits here. He conceals himself. Really? He manages to stay hidden. Wow. I find that mildly hard to believe. They're very unlucky. Let's see. Oh, I guess they don't have a great perception, and their wisdom is pretty shit. So actually, that's believable that they would be rolling a d20 and then subtracting it from it and not get 13 or higher. That's interesting that a goblin, it's good at hiding, but it's not good at seeing the other people that are hidden. Such are the vagaries of Dungeons and Dragons, 5th edition. So it decides to cautiously search. There you go, he's luring him. Now, if I was a DM in this situation, what I would have done is I would have... So the backstory with goblins is that they have... is that goblins? Or... no, the orcs have Grumpsh. I forget the goblin's god's name. But the goblin god, basically in the afterlife, they make it terrible for the goblins. So the goblins really don't want to die. So any chance they get, anytime there's like doubt in battle, they tend to like run away unless they kind of can't. And so in this situation, a goblin probably wouldn't want to right away like go search someone that it can't find. And instead, what they would do is they would probably wait it out. And so what I would do is I would have them roll a wisdom check on maybe like a difficulty class of like 12 or even 10, because it seems like the obvious move. And if they failed, if they were not wise at that, they would go forward and do things. So decides to cautiously search. So you probably, I think in that case, you would roll perception an investigation again? I don't know. And he readies. So that is a good technique. That one of them, what would have been nice in the role playing here. Let me give him some notes. ChatDM style notes. So that's I've been forgetting to do this, but I also like to encourage it and tell it like good behavior that it's had. That's a good strategy for the goblins. One, looking for the player, and the other readies an action to attack if the player can be found. So that is actually very clever and wise of you to do a readied action. I don't know if exclamation points matter, but we'll put it in there. However, with a clear target, their effectiveness is limited by their uncertainty. So let's go back here and say, this one has good sight. So this is the one that would be moving cautiously, which means he wouldn't be running, I guess. And he would have to this is about as far as he would be able to go, right? So let's go back. So you'll remember, search ready action. That's weird. Why did it do that? Since it wasn't. Whoa, what are these comments? Correcting the error, assuming a simple decision-making process for the narrative. Given Lace says, so let's assume the goblins' potentially actions are based on strategy. Okay. So I don't know what it's doing here, but that's fascinating. All right. You can kind of see if you were doing programming, which again, I don't want to do, you could come up with all sorts of interesting tactics to put in there. I'm going to assume, here, let me take this out of here. Let's say, keep being clever like that. Always play NPCs and monsters as making wise, self-serving moves. But, let's see, let's say governed by their wisdom and, I don't know why I'm writing it this way, intelligence levels to see if they make smart or dumb moves. For example, trolls and ogres are not very smart, so they may not come up with clever tactics. But these goblins are smart enough. All right, so I'm going to assume that Leafdag can see the goblin walking and thus trigger his readied attack. He rolls ready to attack. I don't think I'm going to have time to record my commentary. I'll have to do that tomorrow with the longbow. He rolls his readied attacks. He rolls a... I guess the reason you don't roll a readied attack over is because then you're getting two actions. I mean, in the next round. So now he effectively would be getting 4 attacks. I don't know. I need to look up like if a readied attack lasts through the next round. I can see why you would cancel that out. And then you would just say well, them's the breaks with initiative. I guess. Which actually is what happened there. Whatever. Okay. And thus triggering. So let's see. And attacks with his longbow. He rolls a... So what readied action would you have if you're the last one in initiative order? I don't think you get any, which is fine. So now remember he switched to his longbow. I'm just going to keep these all in play so I don't have to keep doing this. So let's say he attacks once, rolling a 17. and damage of 2. So we'll note that again. He rolls a 17. If that hits, the arrow does 2 points of damage. Now, if the DM was rolling 2d6, that goblin could have just 2 hit points. Probably wouldn't be one of the fighter goblins in his tribe or whatever if he did, but whatever. Assuming the goblin, let's say, not assuming because that might lead to too much. If the goblin is still alive, Leafdag attacks again with his longbow, rolling a pretty good. Rolling a total of 23. Let's see if that hits. So this is something you might want to put in the prompt, is like not having to type all of this out. I don't know, it might be fun to type it out, but you would want to just say like, here's the attacks that they do after a while to speed things up. I'm not sure. I'd have to think about that. Tell me what you would want to do. The arrow does, let's see how much damage if it hits, which it should, since it's just a goblin in leather armor. Does 9 points of damage. Does 9 points of damage. Tell me the result of all of this. Let's see. He could take a bonus action to hide again. But he's not going to. Huh. He then moves back behind the cart using whatever cover it affords. So let's see, actually very clever, blah, blah, blah. For example, walking. So he pops out from behind the cart to attack. Right. So tell me the results of all of this, and then move on to the next round and tell me what the goblins do. We'll see if it catches, because one of the goblins should be incapacitated. Here, let's test this out. He then moves back. If that goblin is incapacitated, give a detailed description of the attack and what happened to the goblin. Tell me what the goblins do. So again, I'm going to play this through. It shouldn't take that much longer. And then I think next time, I want to test out like doing role-playing. But I think maybe to test out the combat, because role-playing with ChatDM is actually not so bad. Okay. But what I want to do is I'm going to save this log, and I'm going to start a new session and kind of feed it back into itself and maybe try another combat thing. And I don't know, see what happens. Because ideally, I think what I would like to be able to do is like not have to like reprompt it and whatever. I'll just be like, here's the thing we've been playing, and see what it learns from it. Okay. This is good. See, it's picked up on that I want to know the current state of things. So seizing the moment, he steps out from, striking the goblin, dealing, remains on its feet. Quickly notch another arrow, second shot, this incapacitates. Nice. Collapses under the force of this. I say nice because it's, instead of kill, it does that. There is like a technical thing in D&D that if you go to 0 hit points, you just fall unconscious. But I think is it double? If you actually take double your maximum hit points into negative territory. So if you had 5 hit points or 7 hit points like a standard goblin, if you got to negative 14 hit points, then you would just be irrevocably killed. But whatever. It collapses. It draws attention, leaving as the goblin hits the ground. When one goblin does, leaf tag has effectively reduced the number of active threats. Yep. Move the next round. The survivor must reassess. Yeah. Oh, so it didn't actually move. Let's see what it's saying here. Okay. All right. Well, let's do the next round. As I recall, the goblins have higher initiative, so the archer goes first. Tell me how it decides what to do next, and then play it out. I said tell me how to like actually make it think instead of just following something, because the logical thing for the goblin to do would be to retreat. I mean, okay. I like this simulating the stealth check. So I'm going to give it some instruction here. Rolling a 13. That's fine. So that's good. Okay, so first, you should have asked me to roll Leafdag's perception to see if the goblin hid. Now, you could also arguably, I mean, you could say all sorts of things. It was already hidden, so it's hiding again. I don't know, whatever. Head and do a stealth contest, but we'll skip that. Second, I think under the circumstances, see the dog's upset as well. Junebug. The last goblin would have decided to retreat. It's all right. So let me look and see. So let's go with that so he can disengage. Let's combine the attack and a retreat. We'll say the goblin did hide and attack, and then retreated away using its 30 feet of movement. So did it move through the underbrush? And then, okay. Describe the current state after that, and then await me saying my daughter's back from her school, and the Junebug feels the need to the dog feels the need to bark at everything. All right, I'm going to wrap it up after this. I'm going to decide that Leifdag decides not to pursue. Hello. So you can see. How was school?
First, I need to sit on your lap.
Okay. So you can see. You want to say, oh, why did my camera? Oh, the camera. Let me turn this on and off. You got the. I've got to turn these stupid reactions off. That's my camera froze here because like I need to figure out how to get the reactions to totally turn off in this.
Why?
Well, because what it does is it changes the cameras all around, which is super annoying. And now I'm spending time worrying about the camera. Let's see, maybe if I go here. Yeah, see? Whatever. I'm about to wrap up anyway, so you can see a thumbs up there. But, so now, it basically, so we'll wrap this up since the baby's here and say that he decides to let it run away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, probably tomorrow, I'll do some little 5 or 6 like minute kind of analysis of what we learned here and update things for this part 2. So if you haven't checked that out, and if you watched this far, I'll put a link to the playlist where I have all these stored, and we'll pick this up next time. Goodbye.